All right, so let's take a look at our README. So we're working with a single model called product. The database schema has already been created for us. So first we need to create a virtual environment. So we can start that up. So Python -m venv. Oops. Missed the M somehow. We go source venv bin activate. So now we got that venv right here, which means it worked. We're in a virtual environment now. And then we can just pip install -r requirements.txt. And that'll just install everything we need all in one big package. All right, great. So now we can keep following it. Once we've set up the app, our goal is to get all the tests passing. So we cd into ORM queries, and we can run python manage.py test. Oops, misspelled it. All right, so we got 19 errors. So no attribute, no attribute, no attribute. So that's good. It just means that everything that we're supposed to be testing doesn't exist yet. So we can do this one by one. Take a look at ORM queries, and we're going to be looking at the product CRUD class. It exists right here. So first method is get all products, pass. So it's not working right now. Let's also take a look at our, let's see, our models.py as well. So here's all the information we have on our products. But everything, we have this class right here exists specifically to get things from our that model. Whoops. I'm gonna split the screen a bit. There we go. Just so we can take a look at both of them. So we need to get all of the products using our Django queries. So we need to figure out how to do that. And luckily for us, we've got the Django query set cheat sheet right here. Methods that return query sets. So if we just want, it says get all products, seems pretty straightforward, right? We just want every product in the database probably. So what's a method that makes sense to use for this one?
All.
Yep. Let's take a look at the documentation for this. So returns a copy of the current query set can be useful in situations where we want to pass everything. So we want to do something like, so we want to return product.objects.all, right? We can run our tests again. We should see some of them passing, hopefully. All right, looks like we had one test pass. That's a good sign. If I can.
Hey, no, if
Yes.
you run, go to your command line, press the up arrow once.
Mm-hmm.
And then if at the end of that you pass in a flag with a double dash, fail fast.
Is that all one word, fail fast?
Yes, and then it'll hit the first error and stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then at this point, you don't have to try to comment stuff out, or you don't have to scroll back through how many tests. It'll just hit the first test that it failed, and then it'll stop at that point.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Yeah, so that fail fast is an excellent way of running your tests because then you can just run them one at a time. And in this case, we have one that says product CRUD is no attribute, find by model. All right, so let's just, again, do this kind of the shameless green style and just do everything we can to get that test working. So I'm just gonna say class method, and I'll make one called find by model. That's what they said, right? Take CLS as an argument, and we'll pass on it for now. and then run our test suite again. We should get a different error. Okay, find.model takes one position argument, but two were given. And we can see where it broke right here. So it said heavy duty steel clock is the name of the model. So let's pass in a model as another argument. Clear that out, run the test again. There we go. So now our function is set up correctly. It's just not returning what we need to return. And so the idea is we want to return whichever one has this particular model. Again, we can take a look at our cheat sheet here and figure out, okay, which one makes the most sense for what we're looking for. Perhaps filter. So it says returns a new query set containing objects that match the given lookup parameters. All right, so we need to actually figure out how to make that work. That's a little bit, it's in the format described in the field lookups below. So let's take a look at that. So there's also objects.get, which looks like they have a way of there. So they have ID, case insensitive exact match. So maybe this is something we want to use. So they have name dunder I exact, makes it case insensitive. So we can try .get instead of .filter because we only just want one of them, I think. So we'd return product .objects.get, and then we want model, and let's make sure that this is exactly how it's described here. So they have yep, there it is, model equals models.char field, so we know we're using the right term. We model dunder I like equals model. Let's try that. Okay, that didn't work out. Unsupported lookup I like for char field on join on the field not permitted. Okay. So it looks like that we can't use I like for this one. Maybe we can try exact, see if that works better. All right, looks like that one passed, and now we have a new thing. So we're looking for a last record. Any questions so far about these methods we've made so far?
Yeah, on that one, I just use model equals model and it works. Is that the same thing?
Like so? Sorry, it's not letting me.
Just take out the dunder exact. Yeah, that.
Let's try it. Yeah. Wait, we had a problem. Wait, no, never mind. That one worked. Yeah, so that works. So I was just following the documentation as I saw it, but it looks like you can also just do model equals model if you don't want to use exact matchers or like matchers or anything like that.
I think it defaults to exact if there's nothing there under the past the dunder.
Yeah, that could definitely be it. All right, so now we have last record, which I'm assuming means is looking for the last record that there is. It'd be nice if there was a method that did that automatically. Let's see if there is. So we have an order by. Not seeing one that does last. Let's take a look at order by. So so you can order by something like publication date or something like that. So let's see, what actual things do we have described here? We have a created at and an updated at. So I'm assuming we want it as ordered by creative at. So we could try, return. This isn't exactly what we want, but it'll be maybe closer to what we need. Product dot objects dot order by. We could say to be ordered by, and we want that as a string. So order by created at, perhaps.
And throw in a negative sign in between the quote and the C, and that'll sort it descending.
You mean like this?
Yeah, just one. It looks like. Is that just one negative sign, or is that two? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. Let's see if it says so here.
Well, I know it's supposed to be one, but I just on your screen I couldn't see.
Oh, it's one on there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, let's try that. This will give us an error, but it does give us a query set object. So now we need to actually. So if this is sorted by I guess this would be sorted by ascending, right? We'd want the first thing.
Yeah. So it is subscriptable, so you could just put the open bracket 0 close bracket.
Let's try that. Interesting. So we have another problem. Cannot resolve keyword created at into field. Choices are category, color, description, ID, rating, volume, discount, percent, volume, discount, threshold. Interesting, because did it give us that error before? I don't believe it did. So yeah, this time it didn't give us that error, but when we tried to add 0, it said you can't do that. Odd. Because this is a Django DB models query set. Let's take a look at a Django model query set then.
Do you not have to request all from the thing first and then order it by?
As in dot all.
All. Yep.
Let's see if that changes anything. Oops. So that didn't change anything there. It looks like the exact same thing to me. And if I try to access 0, let's see if it gives us that error again. That's so interesting. So let's try this again. Query set API reference. So maybe I wanted to say first. So I don't think you need to do .all.order by. I think order by default will will do everything. But if I want to get the first thing there.
Can't you just do it by ID, since the IDs would be created in order anyway? So your last one should be the last digit or the highest digit in the ID field.
That's a good point. So we could order by ID. Whoop. And again, do that. We should get a query set. And so either we want the first thing in this or the last thing.
Yeah, I did the last one. So I did dot last and then open close paren.
Dot last. So that's a method we have access to. All right, that looks like it worked out pretty well.
Order by, you don't need the order by. You could just grab the last one with that.
As in dot objects dot last?
Yep.
Very good. So there are a lot of different ways to get to the same result. But yeah, project.objects.last will by default give you the last thing created. And
So why was it created at ordered by created at working? Because it's not allowing a null, so it has to exist.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what was going on with that. it didn't seem to think that created at was a valid field, but only when I tried to access it using array notation.
Created at's not actually set up in your model.py.
I mean, it's
If you look at your model.py, created at and updated at, it's not being used in the model. It's there, but it's, see it?
yeah, it's not set up as a models dot something.
Yeah, so it doesn't exist in the table.
That's
Steve
a
and
good
I went
point.
down that rabbit hole trying to get that fixed, and you can go there, but it was a long couple hours.
Oh no.
And we during that process, we were trying to open up the database and look at it, which we didn't have any success at. Is there?
It deletes it every time and it recreates it. I tried the same thing. I'm like, but I got all this cool database stuff, but yeah, there's no database to look at.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we concluded. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris probably. Is that you, Chris?
Yeah.
How to
So
put that out of that fixture, I hope.
that fixture, when you run it in a testing suite for Django, it is going to run it in memory, and it's going to, as the test runs, it's supposed to run it in memory, and it will wipe it every single time. So the only way you could actually, you would have to access the in-memory database, which I don't even think I've tried to do that yet. But you would have to migrate your database and then inject some data with like a custom migration, or like write a script to load data into like a DB SQLite file and then open it. So yeah, the stuff in the testing area doesn't go into the db.sqlite file, so you won't be able to look at it.
Yeah. So, for this challenge, the goal is just to focus on learning the Django query methods. We shouldn't have to be able to spend too much time trying to mess around with the vagaries of the database system.
Whoever had the order by ID, that actually works. I just tried it.
Cool. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is by rating. Looks like it takes a rating as an argument. So we could say by rating, take CLS and a rating as an argument. And if I'm not mistaken, this one should all work almost exactly as find by model, right? We should just be able to use product.objects.get rating equals rating.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I always try to avoid like very similar names. So I never want to have an input field that's the exact same name as one of the other things, just so I can always distinguish the difference. I know the computers are smarter, but yeah, I did mine as like a rating to search or query rating, as you put it. So
yeah, nothing wrong with that. So let's still try it out. So product.objects.get rating equals query rating. Clear and run the test. All right, looks like we had some interesting thing here. It
Says find products plural, so I'm thinking query set.
Yeah, return more than one product, it returned 5. So I'm not sure if what it's saying is that we want more than one or if we only want one. Maybe we try dot filter. There we go. So in this case, the problem was that, so it looks like .get, it's designed to find an exact match in only one thing, and if there's more than one thing, it'll not sure what to do. So if there's chances for something to be repeated, you want to use filter rather than get, by the looks of it. All right, now we have product by rating range. So we want anything that's in between two values. So I'll call this min and max. So now we have something interesting, because we can't just say rating equals one thing. We need to say rating is between two things. So we know we're going to have to use product.objects.filter. But how do we look for something with the, like, you know, that's in between two values?
Yeah, I couldn't find a specific one. I had to chain two of them, and I did one test where it was greater than or equal to, and then the next filter would be the less than or equal to. You know, compare your two different sides. I couldn't find a between specifically.
Yeah, well, we could also use the and operator, it looks like, because we want something that's above minimum and below maximum. So it looks like you can use the ampersand here. They have something called Q. Do we need Q in order for this to work?
You can use the second line. That works also. That's a little easier.
Ah. So let's try that. So product.filter. This would be model is greater than min, and model is less than max. Let's see if it is that simple. Be nice if it is.
You want to use double under and then LT for less than, and then GT for greater than.
As in, like this?
Yeah.
Or this would be greater than in this case?
And add a E.
LTE.
I don't remember if the statement said equal or not.
No?
Yeah, it's greater than or equal, GTE and LTE for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And nice to know my old Fortran coding paid off in recognizing that.
Well, let's see if we have the syntax right now. Okay, it looks like something happened. Lists differ.
There's actually a method like for this already called range. I don't know if you want to use that. It's like double underscore range, and then you pass it your min and max.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. Let's take a look at that and see if it was in our cheat sheet. That would be nice. If not, we'll have to look it up. That looks like it'd be useful. So it looks like you can say objects.filter, and then you can say, should be able to say rating under range. That looks like this looks like a good way to handle this. Thank you. So in this case, we could say filter, we modeled under range equals min max. I believe I have that correct. Let's try it out. All right, we're still getting a problem here. So we're getting an empty list instead of a list of, it looks like it's looking for a list of IDs, and we're not getting anything.
I'm not sure where that model is coming from, but I used rating and it passed.
Oh, yes, you're right. Rating under range. Thank you for catching that. There we go. All right, so next one we have is by rating and color. So CLS, we'll give it, I'll call it query rating and query color. So it looks like this may be a good place for our and operator. Or you're just giving it two arguments. So return product dot objects. Let's try dot filter again. We should be able to say this would be rating equals query rating. Oops. And color equals query color. All right, that's one. And now we have by rating or color. So this one's a little bit different. All right, so this case, we want something that fulfills either of these two things, right? Could be the query, could be the color. So let's take a look at that OR operator, because that seems like it would make sense there. So they have two versions here. One is essentially doing model.objects.filter or this, or we could import this Q thing and do it that way. So let's just do it the way without having to, we can do it without having to import something here. So in this case, we'd want to say return, we'd say product dot objects dot filter. Then in one, we'd have rating equals query rating. And then we can use the pipe here, which is the OR operator, product.objects.filter color equals query color. How's that look to people? Does that make sense? Let's try it out. Cool. All right, any questions so far about the things we've done before I move on to more of the tests? All right, gonna keep going then. This one's a no color count.
Yeah. No, sorry, late question.
Mm-hmm. What's up?
Sometimes it seems like we had to redo the product.object.filter with the with the characteristic, and other times you could just kind of put the characteristic comma, like for number 6, I did the rating equals rating passed, comma, color equals color passed, with just one product object filter, and then, but for the OR, I had to put the kind of the prefix back on.
Yeah, that's the way it's set up, is because it's the difference between the AND operator and the OR operator, which is kind of it's a control flow issue. Because if you have something with the AND operator, we're telling it, look for something that fulfills both of these categories. And it looks like that filter is set up to be able to take an AND operator very easily. Just give it more than one argument, and it'll say, all right, I'll find anything that fulfills both of these requirements. But it's not set up to do something that says, give me something that does this one or this one. And OR operates different by AND. It's saying, if it fulfills either of these categories, then grab it. And since it's not natively built to do that, we're using this OR operator here saying, return anything that fulfills this one or this one.
So that sounds like that's just basically the way it is. That seems odd to me, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it also kind of makes sense if you're trying to approach this without using the AND or the OR. Yeah. For instance, the AND, I replaced that. I didn't even use the AND or OR. But the AND can be done with doing inline double filters. So you do product.objects filters equal to rating to match or rating query, followed by another filter for the color. So that can be all done in one line. And if you're trying to do the OR without using the OR method, you do each one of those as their own separate line. So you do product objects filter, do the rating, set that as one thing, do the color as another thing. Now you have two different sets with two different matches. And if you union the sets together, then that'll be the OR methodology with it. So again, if you weren't going to use the AND or if you're just trying to do it as plain vanilla as possible, the AND you can kind of write in one line as two filters back to back, so you can keep the prefix at the very beginning. You just need the one prefix, the product.objects. But if you're to do the OR method without actually using OR and using it just plain vanilla, you'd actually have two different queries. where you have to write out the product.objects twice.
Mhm. Does that answer your question?
I mean, yeah, it answers it. Again, it doesn't necessarily seems like it shouldn't be that way, but I'll push the I believe button.
All right, so now we have one that says no color count. And it looks like, by the looks of this right here, it returns an integer. I'm going to take a look at the tests, because they have some things here that actually are a little more instructive here about actually what it's looking for. Returns the count of products that have no color value. All right, so that means that it's possible for a color to be null. All right, so we need something to get a count. Now, again, we could get everything that equals null and get the count of that, but let's see if there's any kind of thing that already does that for us, because that's always a fun way. If I just do count, ooh, here's an aggregation function. Let's take a look at it. So count returns the number of objects that are related through the provided expression. So here, it doesn't give us an example. So let's see here. Let's take a look down. I'm going to kind of take a look at count in a little more detail, see if we can get an example going. So we can, from Django DB models, import count. And they have query blog.objects.annotate count, and they have by entry here. So we may need to use that from Django, what was it, .bb.models, import count. And we want to return, this would be product.objects, and they use .annotate. And what we're annotating is we're getting the count. We want everything that we should, maybe it could do, the question is everything where the color is null. So they have something by entry here, but what if we want it, with a filter? Let's see if they have another example that will help us figure that out. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what we want.
For me, it took a while trying to play around with this one, but I ended up with color equals none. So that's what we're actually be going through. I didn't use the count method, but the actual filter is colors equal none.
Yeah. Well, let's see if it works. If it works right here like this, because that'd be nice. If not, we'll have to keep on trying some other things. All right. So we have missing one required positional argument expression. So it looks like it didn't like this. Yeah, you do. It does make me think of the count. You're right. Let's see.
There's an uppercase count and a lowercase count.
A lowercase count might be easier. So let's try. So that would be something like .filter.
I think so, especially because I can never get the capital one to work.
Like so?
And you don't have to import anything either with that one.
Yeah.
Let's try that. Yep, that works a lot easier than using the aggregator method. So aggregator methods, they're very, very powerful and useful. It's not always intuitive how they work. So if you can find a way of doing it without an aggregator method, great. But it's also important to know them and see them. And I'm sure we'll probably see them again before we're done with this.
And there's even a way to do it without the aggregator or without even using the count method.
Yeah.
So I have a question on you have color equals none. I ended up using color dunder is null equals true. Are they synonymous, or are there any nuanced differences? Do you know?
So color dunder is none equals true. I'm not
Is
sure.
null.
Or is null. I'm not entirely sure which one, if there's any particular strong difference there. It's just a method. It's just a matter of, do you want to use the built-in method that automatically checks for that, or do you want to just check color equals none?
Yeah, that took me some trial and error. That's how I came up with it. Initially, I did, color is equal to empty string, and that didn't, come up with the results I was looking for. And then I tried to do a string for null inside, because I know Python doesn't have null. Specifically, it has none. But yeah, just trial and error, and then I managed to get it to work with color is equal to none outside of the string. So.
I also use the is null function. I was just thinking, like, isn't null different than none? That's why I used it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this case, so a lot of different languages have, different ways of expressing nothingness. And in SQL, it's null. In Python, it's none. And kind of the dot filter here, when we say color equals none, we're essentially telling it, when we say none, what we're actually looking for is null. And in this case, the ORM knows what we're talking about. But if we use the is null here, that's also saying we're specifically looking for anything that evaluates to null. And I believe that should still work. I'm going to also pass this right here so that we don't get a different error.
There's no underscore between is and null, I think.
So just like this. Or is there a capital N?
It's lowercase.
Yep. So I think kind of in this particular case, checking whether or not the color equals none or whether color is null equals true, I don't think there's necessarily a big difference in this particular case. There may be other times when you'd want to specify, I want a Boolean value, rather than either a string or none. So for this particular method, either one is valid, but there may be times when you'd rather use the is null method instead of just checking if color equals none. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Below price or above rating. So this looks like we have another OR operator situation. So, query price, query rating. This seems like it's combining a few things we've already done. So you can say return product dot objects dot filter. And the first one was price. So you want to say price, what was it? LT equals query price. And then we can set up our OR operator, the pipe, and just do product dot objects dot filter rating GT equals query rating. And the reason I'm doing it this way instead of the other way is, again, it's looking for anything that fulfills either of these requirements rather than everything that fulfills both. Nope, okay, we have a problem. Can it resolve keyword price into field? Choices are category, color, description, ID, manufacturer, price sense. Got to be careful what our fields are named. It's not always what you think it'll be.
I did the same exact thing.
That, and I had to change my type hints from float to int.
All right. Now we have another one. It has no attribute. Ordered by category, alphabetical order, and then price descending. All right. Now we're getting into some fun stuff. This is a long name for a method. I'm just going to copy this.
It's actually dekending.
You're right. Well, if that's what it demands, then that's what I'll give it.
Yeah, the bright side is the solution is shorter than the length of the solution. When you type it out, is shorter than the length of the function call.
Good to know. So let's see exactly what that means. So it says we want to return products ordered by category alphabetical and descending price. So we need to, so essentially there's two different ways we're ordering it at the same time. The question is, how do we do that? And sounds like you had an idea. Whoever was just talking, I actually couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah, just order by. So product dot objects order by open parentheses, single quote category, comma, and then close out that quote, and then comma, open quote, negative price. Sorry, so new quote, negative, then price cents. Sorry, negative sign instead of a.
Like
so then.
this.
Yeah, and then actually right where you're at, that's where you're going to put in price cents. So it's kind of like you're putting a negative operator inside of the quote.
Mm-hmm.
And then that should be it. Close up the parentheses.
Let's try it. Yeah, looks like that works. Yep. So it's interesting, like it's one of those things that's hard for me personally to kind of picture what they mean, because how can it be ordered by both category, by alphabetically by category and order descending? But this seems to give them what they want. So all right, let's try this one. Products by manufacturer with name like. So in this case, we want something that could be with name like. Sorry, hard to me to say both at the same time. Also need that def. Okay, there we go. So name like CLS, let's call it, queries name, why not? So in this case, you want something that's kind of an inexact match. So product.objects.filter. And so we want something that is like that. Let's see if it has right here. So it's not in here, but if we take a look at filter, I believe we kind of encountered this earlier and realized we didn't need it. We do like. Perhaps I like. So we want something that's not, we don't want an exact match. We want something that's just contains it. No, speaking of, contains. And we can see the SQL equivalent, select something where headline is like that. So it looks like contains may be exactly what we need. So that filter, this would be manufacturer, under contains equals query name. All right, looks like that one worked out. Now we've got one that's kind of a similar name. That's class method, manufacturer names for query. And honestly, I can't really tell what that's asking for on the face of it, so I'm going to take a look at the notes here. Returns a list of manufacturer names that match query. So we just want the names of all the manufacturers that match that. We don't want the entire product. So it's very similar to what we just did, except we're not returning everything. We're just returning one field from each of them, right? Does anyone know a way we do that?
My first line on there was actually send something to the previous function and then assign that as value. And then, so basically you're gonna do the
yeah, so we can do
products by manufacturer with name like, and then you just pass along your query name, and then you get the result and you assign that to something. So yeah, products, I guess in this case.
Yeah, so products equals products by manufacturer with name like, using the query name. So yeah, it's good. You can always use your own methods to work with other methods. So that gives us a list of all the products. And then
from there, just did a products, I guess the name of your variable, dot value list.
Value list?
Values underscore list, sorry. And then open parentheses, the manufacturer in quotation, in a quote. So basically the manufacturer field, and then comma, so outside of the quote. Flat equal true.
What does that do?
That basically returns it just as one. We're only calling one column in here, so instead of the original values list returns as a tuple, and we don't necessarily need all the extra attributes. We just want the very first value. So flat equal true gets rid of the extra commas, and when we're only dealing with one column.
Yeah, let's take a look at that values list thing. So I can just get an exact thing what's going on. So Django values list. Values list. So similar to values, except instead of returning dictionaries, returns tuples when iterated over. So it returns a list of tuples. So for example, the ID and the headline. Or we just got that. I see what you mean here. So this is what it would give us for the manufacturer name. It would give us one, so it would give us, whatever the manufacturer name is, comma, because it's in a tuple. And flat true just makes it a list, just like you said. Let's try that out. Cool. So now we have one that says not in a category. So it looks like it takes in a category name as an argument. The question is, does it want us to return, what is it actually expecting? So I guess it looks like it wants us to return everything that isn't in so anything that isn't in this category. So she'll do something like, product dot objects dot filter. And we've been able to do, category equals, but in this case we want to do category doesn't equal. Is it as simple as just doing category not equals? Like so? Let's try it. Looks like category is not defined, so that didn't work out exactly how we wanted. Maybe we do it that way.
Your filter argument has to be a keyword argument, so you can't do the not equals in front of it.
So I can't do the not equals thing here. So the question is, how do I do that? How do I do an exclusion using that?
Exclude is the opposite of filter. I guess that would be inverse of filter.
So category.exclude or objects.exclude.
That's what I went with.
Like this. Yep. That looks like it worked out pretty well. All right, we've got 14 tests. How many tests are there in total?
19, almost there.
All right, let's push through it then. So this is called limited not in a category. And based on what that means and what I'm seeing in the arguments, it's kind of like not in a category, but we only want to limit this to a certain number of arguments. So CLS cat name, and then limit. So how do we limit how many return values we get?
To reduce some things, you send this off to, well, there'd be an intermediate step, but you send it off to the previous command, just passing in the category name.
Yeah, so we could always use cls.not in a category.
And then
name.
That returns you a list of everything that's not in the category. And now you only want the first set number of elements. So then we'll do,
so we want to return
not slicing notation. It was, well, similar to slicing notation, but
so something
it'd
like
be product. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need to put 0. Just go ahead and put a blank, and then colon, and then limit.
Let's try it. All right, so we have product is no option limited, not in a category. Oh, whoops, misspelled it. Let's try that again. All right, that works. All right, keep going.
Is there an opinion on, because I don't really know, like having your own methods? I know it's on the same class and everything, but having your methods coupled like that, is that a good practice, a bad practice? I mean, there's code reuse, but then there's don't have them coupled. Any opinions on that?
I would call this good practice, personally. Anything that keeps you from repeating yourself in your code makes sense. And, you know, that's kind of one big part of object-oriented programming is making sure that you have all your methods can depend on one another. Because it'd be one thing if this method was limited by a method that another class had, perhaps, because then you have, you know, greater dependency between different classes. But dependencies within the class are considered better practice rather than just writing a method that does the same thing twice. Or writing two methods that do the same thing, is what I mean to say. All right, let's take a look at category manufacturers. I'm not entirely sure what it's asking here, so let's see. Returns an array of manufacturers for a category. So it looks like it's very similar to our manufacturer names for query. So we want to get all of the manufacturers from a certain category. So cat. So we can say product, let's call them category products. I don't know if we have a method, we made a method already that did that or not. I'm just going to just use the product.objects.filter, category equals cat. And then we just want the manufacturers. If we just want one thing, we can say, we can use our values list thing right here. So return category products dot values list category, nope, manufacturer. And we want flat to equal true. So they're not tuples. All right. So next one is average category rating. So I think this is where we're going to have to use one of our aggregator functions. Or maybe there's a way to get around it, but I think that's what we're intended to learn here. So average category rating, CLS and cat. So we obviously need to get all of our products within a certain category. So I'll just say category products. Actually, I can even I'll just copy this line here. And now we need to get the average of that. So let's take a look at what our options are. Average it by rating. If I look up average, there's something called AVG there. I'm not seeing another one. So let's take a look at it. So returns the mean value of the given expression, which must be numeric unless you specify a different output field. So let's see if they give us an example of it in use. Doesn't look like they want to. So let's do some Googling.
Yeah, I found that rather annoying.
Let's see.
Here's what it is, but we're not going to tell you how to use it.
Yeah. So it looks like they have this thing. So from Django DB models, import AVG. And then they said objects.all.aggregate AVG price. So it looks a little simpler than the count one, at least for this particular way. So maybe we can do return. Well, we need to import it. And we don't have to go all the way up here to do that. I just prefer to. So from Django.db.models, import AVG. So we want to return category products dot aggregate AVG, and what we want is the rating. All right, cool. I'm going to close these down because honestly, I'm tired of this being squished in. All right, couple more tests to go. So this is greatest price. Doesn't take an argument. So I'm assuming this just wants us to get the highest price of anything, right? Returns the highest price. All right, so in this case, we can do, we've done our order by before, right? So we could say, so it'd be product.objects.order by.
Well, you want the max price, so maybe there's a max thing.
Maybe there is.
It was right there. Other page.
Well, let's try capital M.
Yeah, it was below average.
Yep.
Not below average, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause
I'm
maximum's
imagining it
always
works
below
similar
average.
to the way the average does, so that way. So maybe we can just do return.objects.aggregate max price cents. Remembering what the field is actually called this time.
If that doesn't work, it's due to importing.
Due to importing?
Okay, yeah, you do have it there now. Okay, I didn't see it.
All right, so now we have longest model name. So I'm not sure if max will work there because it's not a new model name isn't a numeric value by default. But maybe there's a way to make it work that way. Longest model name.
Yeah, you can use annotate.
Use what? Sorry.
Annotate to make it a new. It's like adding a column, kind of.
All right, let's take a look at. Let's see if we can find that. So go back to our cheat sheet. Annotate. How does this work? So annotates each object in query state with the provided list of query expressions. An expression may be a simple value or reference to a field on the model that has been computed over the objects. So they have something here using count, which isn't what we want, I think.
There's a function called length, capital L, but it has to be imported.
All right, that's not in this page, so let's try Django length. Django unchained is not what I want. Length of string. Not sure if this is...
add query in there. Add Django query and then type length. That should give you a better result.
Django filter on the basis of text length. That sounds useful. So let's see what they say here.
Yeah, I hit that one last night. The answer has -14.
Yeah, it's I think the following one.
Same here, one after it.
Yeah, it has that length.
So from Django DB models function import length. They use the annotate function, text len equals length, text field name, then you dot filter. Well, that's, you know, for a specific other thing. So this looks like it may be useful. So again, let's try that. So this is from Django.db.models.functions. Import length. So you want to return product.objects.annotate. And we could say, you know, model len equals length of model. And then we want to get the, so that won't give us everything. That'll just add a field for the model length. So then we should be able to get the max one from based on that, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, you can use the exact thing that you use above.
Mm-hmm.
Dot aggregate and then max.
So
your new field.
Yeah. So like we can call this, you know, I don't know, model lengths, which isn't really model length query. Let's call it that. And we want to return model length query dot aggregate max by model len. So annotate essentially gives each of the things in this query set an extra field called that we've named model len, and then we can get the max by that value this way. Okay, so we got the wrong answer. So it was expecting 25. What it got was 29 by the look of it.
It wants the ID, not the actual length.
Oh.
That tripped me up for a while.
Actually, for me, it wanted the length because at one point, one of my errors says the super something wallet, whatever the actual name was, doesn't equal 25. And then I counted all the characters in that string, and then so it wanted the actual length.
Well, according to the annotation here, it says returns the ID of the product with the longest model name. So
the longest length is 29.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we don't want the longest length. We want the, so we can do the one with the longest name. So we can do model length query dot order by model len dot first, or to be dot last. I always forget which one it is by default. I think it'd be dot last. Well, we can try it one way and then the other. Oh, wait, what? Oh, I think I need to make it a string. Yeah. Try that again. All right, so we need the ID of it, not the actual product object. So
you need a values list.
You should be able to just do .id.
Perhaps, let's try that. There we go.
Oh, nice.
When it's just one thing, it's easy to just get the ID without having to use, a value list. All right. I believe this is the last one. Ordered by model length. So I think this is very similar to what we just did with just a couple extra steps. Length of their model name. So we already have something that we have a line here that can get us all of the model lengths. And then we should just be able to return, heck, we can even just return this part.
Yeah, alternatively, if you want to keep things dry, you go back to the previous one and delete everything. Call the last function that we just created, and then attach the last ID portion to that as a return.
Yep, that would be the dry way of handling that. You're right. But I didn't feel like it in this case, and we've passed all our tests. So that's your queries. Hopefully, kind of as a general rule, you won't necessarily have to be jumping through this many hoops in your day-to-day use of Django, but it's good to have get some mastery of querying the ORM, because then you have fewer problems actually having to get what you need. As a general rule, I think you're going to be mostly doing like, okay, I want the latest options or something like that when you're making a general CRUD app. But you never know when you'll need something a little more advanced. Especially if you're doing something where you search filters. Like if you're making an e-commerce store, for example, you may need more skill with querying a database. Any questions about this before we take a break? Okay. In that case, let's get back here at 10:40, so take an 8-minute break. And then we're just going to, essentially, we're just going to review creating a Django ORM just so we can, see it some more often and get a good feel for it.